the market just became extremely volatile with the daily and weekly candle close. What we are watching here is the weekly candle close. Now, it does not actually look that bullish, but then you actually zoom in on the daily to see what just happened there. We are watching that one candle to the upside is taking like 2 or 3 different candles to try and test its bottom. Now, when we zoom in, we do understand that, yeah, we came down just below 30K again, which is volatility, but then we are getting buyers there. We are finding some traction. It's bouncing back up. What's more important to watch? Because on this scenario, you need to keep this in mind. We kind of had a trend line here. We broke that. Why is that important? Because if we get a rejection there, it's not gonna look decent here, because that can create volatility in the market. What do I mean by that? I just talked about this possibility here in the market when the price was about to do crazy stuffs. I told you guys like, okay, watch out. This may actually be just a retest and a rejection, right? And then that just happened. It got retested and it got rejected. That's a hourly chart, hourly scenario showing that you came back up, you got retested and you got rejected. And the volatility that just showed you there is a lot of people entering into the market with different positioning for sure. With that weekly close, what is more important here? Understanding the basics is the critical stuff. Now, why would I say that? Now, ask yourself this question. What do you mean by technical analysis? It's actually looking at the psychology of the market, nothing else. Great. What does that mean? It means you, me, and others, the market participants, we are trying to figure out the millions of guys and their brain when they are dealing with this market. Now, the most important thing about that is the candle closes, especially the daily, the weekly, the monthly. Great. Now, why is that so important? Because we'll get noise in the market in between. Say if you are looking at a daily chart, you will see a lot of fluctuation, the noise, before you get the daily close. But what matters is how the hell that candle gets closed, which means the daily traders are moving out. Now, the long-term traders and their positioning becomes visible. Now, the weekly traders, they move out and we see the long-term positioning. If you look at these 3 candles and the current structure, tell me one thing. What do you think is going to happen next? Because one of the reasons why I'm saying this is like everyone has their own opinion. And when I was actually asked about this, I actually gave my thought process here. Now that's like, maybe a couple of days old. But I actually talked about this possibility saying, yeah, what we are watching in the market is volatility for sure. But I do believe that this 4-hour chart shows us a possibility of a retest of 30K again. And if we defend that, it's great for bulls, but that's going to come. That was my statement. Now, you go back into the line chart, just avoid noise and use the trend lines. It does work, actually. It does work. This is one of the reasons why I follow that. It bounced off. It hit that level. You got rejected. Now you're going back down. Now, what's the concern? As I just told, there are different factors to consider because XRP is working differently. Ether is performing differently. And the market is showing you volatility. What does all this factor down to? Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get to learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. Back in the day, when I actually gave you guys this as an opportunity, and right now you go and watch the same exact asset at 438, you'll ask the question like, okay, how do we actually find these opportunities? And what works and what does not work, right? This is the first thing I want to start with. Now, this is not a lecture. This is not going to be boring. I'll try to make this interesting. One thing to look at this is you, me, and others who are in the market. We are reacting to the information. We are actually trying to make money. Great. So if you actually try to factor in a weekly chart, or a macro chart and the micro movement inside the macro chart, what happens in the market is that those guys who were back in the market, 2016, 2017, 2018, most of them are not here right now. You have a little bit of people, but not a lot of them. Even the people who came in during 2021 run up and those who bought at the top, majority of them are not now in the market. They got wiped out because they went for all these different projects, the NFTs, all those things. Those who are still in here, yeah, that's a small piece. So that means we literally need to look closely. We need to look at the recent data, the recent past, because that's going to repeat inside here. Most likely, that's the situation. Why is that? Because in the stock market, when I'm sharing this data, why was I that confident saying, okay, this is an opportunity? Maybe I'm wrong. But if the history repeats, that's the direction. Why is that? Because that's the stock market where you can actually do that. Everyone can do that, right? Here, an investor like Buffett stays there 10, 20, 30 years. They're long-term guys. Now in the crypto market, ask how many of us are really long-term guys who have been here from 2010, 12, 13, 14, 15. There is very few individuals, right? Now you understand. One of the easiest things to look for is what's the market showing us. There's Bitcoin before the daily close, the weekly close and all. I shared this thought process in my group saying, look at this. The MACD is crossing to the downside. The RSI is trending to the downside. What do we really look forward to? There is a possibility that if we actually break this 29,700, we may come down. That's taking the bar pattern of the recent past. That's a microstructure of the micro horizon, because I believe those who are here in last 2-3 months, most likely they're still in the market. Now, if we take the odds of 5 years, okay, I think this has a higher possibility. Great. Now, what does that mean for XRP, for Ether, for the entire crypto market? Let's break that down easily. One of the things which we need to see here is that, yes, we are getting positive move on the daily chart, where we are looking at that candle and saying, okay, one bullish candle, and it's now taking 3 candles to come back down to erase or retest that one bull. That means the bull is really strong here. So on the micro, it does look good. So the next candle can be a positive one. Even this day itself can be a positive one. And we may go back up to retest 31,340. Okay, that's $1,000 movement in Bitcoin. It's not small, agreed, it's decent move. But then you go on a weekly chart and you actually see a weekly candle closing like this. An engulfing candle to the downside after a run up from 24,000 towards 32,000. Or say, to be precise, 24,700 towards 31,400. That actually gives us some idea like, okay, we actually did move pretty decent. We actually did get that kind of volatility. But last time, when we got an engulfing candle, what happened after that? This is important. This is important. Last time, when you actually saw an engulfing candle, what happened? These repeat almost every single time. So that's one of the reasons why I always try to focus on the macro direction first and the macro trend, because that's going to prevail for sure. So the trend here is great. It's bullish. But your mean is close to 27. So there is a possibility you may still come back down to that point. So that's one of the reasons why when I was asked my opinion about, going back towards, a break of those levels and flying off, I was like, okay, maybe that's true. I can be wrong 100% for sure. But what we are trying to do is to understand the market better. Everyone has a different opinion. Say for me, I believe the trend lines work and I have my own reasons. You go look at the CMT, CFAs, the documents where you actually teach technical analysis. All these bankers, the JP Morgan guys, you now understand, okay, this is a big part of it. Now, going into the details. This is Ether. Now, let's actually keep the indicators away. Now, yes, MACD crossed to the downside. Not great. The RSI is trying to break to the downside. Not great. But what we need to look at is the macro picture. Great. Once you understand the fact that the macro picture actually suggests you the fact that the trend line is moving to the upside, you're actually trying to trend to the upside. Now we get an idea. Okay, that's positive. Fine. Great. Then you need to understand, okay, that's on the macro side of events. We are looking at a year of the trend, and we do see that. Now we are looking for the medium term scenario. What the hell is happening here? We had a resistance range, which the price action was respecting. We broke that to the upside. Now we are retesting that, and it is positive. So we had a channel, and usually these channels actually show you price consolidation against the trend. So if this is a falling channel, that means say something close to a bull flag. You can break this to the upside, you can travel to the upside. Great. Now, remember, this trend line is still there. So let's actually plot it here and put it into the dotted dash lines or whatever. So that helps. Even if the price drops back to this level, I would still be bullish. Why? Because that's the prevailing trend. Each time you come to that point, you see someone else buying it huge at the cheaper price. Most likely it's institutions or the whales for sure, because it's not, the retailers buying at the bottom and selling at the top. Most likely that's not the story. Now, positive thing for Ether is that it's way above the trend line. The negative thing for XRP is that it's below the trend line. We had this thought process recently before we broke to the downside. I shared my thought process. Now, if you guys are watching and you want more of these kind of thought process, come look at the Twitter. I do post that. Now, this was explained in a video, and if you missed that video, this would have been helpful, right? We actually followed that pattern. The price action did break to the downside. So if you are looking for that in Twitter, this can be really helpful for you, because when we say this, understand one thing, it's not just sharing my opinion. I want to understand how the market reacts to that. I want to see how the market is actually working. And I want to see how these information is helping people. There are individuals who are coming back, giving me this idea, saying, I've followed you for 2-3 years, and this is what happened in my life. And I'm so happy to understand that. I don't know this individual in person, where this guy is, all those stuff. But I'm so happy that as a family, they did great, right? When they actually say this, paid for 2 really nice wedding for their children with profits from my TA, I'm really happy. Now, I actually had to, ask about the permission to share this, and that's one of the reasons why it actually took so much time to come here. But understand this. Once the market gives you the idea that it actually works, now you have to understand why that works, right? What's the actual reason behind it? Now, take that reasoning here inside, say, XRP. Look at the chart. One thing, take line chart, reduce the noise. We are just looking at the closes, the daily close, the weekly close, whatever chart you're looking at. Right now, it shows you the fact that we are breaking to the downside. We tried retesting that. It's not a great story, right? The storyline is not good. But what's positive? We're trying to find something positive in a negative move. That's the support. If we are able to bounce off from that point, I'm like, that's a double bottom, great. Because we actually happen to see that here, right? We actually happen to see similar movements in the market, in almost similar movements of different textbook layouts of double bottoms in the market. So we actually get the point, okay, if we do that, it's a fake out, we go back up. Now we want to see what the indicators give us. MACD is trying to cross to the upside, but we are still in the negative territory and we haven't yet crossed to the upside. So we are neutral at that point. Now we go look at the RSI. RSI does suggest there is a possibility I may actually do a double bottom, right? So the price action and the anticipated movement, which we just discussed about the price action, can come true if we bounce off from that level, and the RSI suggests that has some level of confidence. Now, one of the reasons is that the crypto market, the altcoin side of things, is looking decent. Why? It's still above the trend line. It's actually showing you positive signs. And then you're looking at the Bitcoin side of things. You see the Bitcoin price being extremely volatile during these hours. But yeah, that's the daily, that's the weekly candle closes. And when these volatility arrive in the market, you have to keep in mind that, yeah, this is the possibility we are looking at. And why is that? Right? The medium term scenario, what are we really looking at? The micro scenario, what is playing out right now with the daily traders, what are they looking at? Because once they move out, what we see is the medium term. So it's really important. That's one of the reasons why when someone asks my thought process, I give you the short term, the thought process towards the daily, the medium term outlook. So it's like, okay, this is what the traders are doing. Once the traders are out, this is what the long term investors are thinking, at least the way I understand it, right? And then here, okay, daily is showing us some bullish signs. We are holding on to this particular level. But let's actually look for negatives, because the MACD is showing me negative, the RSI is showing me negative on a daily, not on a weekly, on a daily. So I want to actually look for less noise. And this chart actually gives me an idea. Yeah, that's true. I'm holding on to that level, but that trend line is sloping to the downside. And the upside looks like this. When was the last time you actually watched similar pattern and that broke to the upside and moved extensively to the upside? Because for me, when I'm looking back for Bitcoin, maybe XLM and a lot of these different assets, when I see this pattern, it's not good. Say, especially you go back into, say, for example, the XLM. That was one of the assets back in the days when we were actually looking for the trend analysis. We actually understood the fact that it was actually showing us something same. Where was that? Just before a corrective action began in the market. This was trending lower at a time when this was trending higher. That didn't end up pretty much good. It had that correction. It went back up, tested that range, agreed, but that pattern actually provided a corrective actions. Now, yes, this is looking at the market psychology. We are going back a couple of years and it's in a different asset. But what we are trying to look at is microstructure movements of that time and this time, because most of the traders who are understanding this pattern, they're still in the market, they're still active. Most of them are bots. They're not human beings, right? Most of them are bots, algorithms, and they work by understanding the psychology of the other guys in the market to elude them. So automatically, this becomes helpful for us. So if we break this moving average on a daily here, we are looking for something like 27K. That can be attractive for the buyers, but those who are already in the market, that's pain, that's frustration, that's stress. So it is actually important to understand, okay, these are my long-term bags where I need a ton of patience. And this is what I'm expecting in the market. If the market does that, it's not stressing me out, because on the other side, I know what's the opportunity looking like. I know what are the assets moving, because then you look at these assets which are actually holding on to their gains in a monthly, weekly time horizon. And look at these. Some of them are really holding on to that. And we had our thought process on all of these assets, and we actually watch these assets are grinding higher. They're trending. So once you understand which of these assets are trending higher, now if you want to trade, if you want to rebalance your portfolio, you actually have an edge in the market. And that's where the group actually becomes really viable. Meaning these kind of analysis and my detailed thought process on what I'm thinking actually is shared over there, just like what we have done with the Netflix chart. Because the understanding here, when the price goes down, for me, is like, okay, if the world is really going to end tomorrow, even if I close the position and keep the money with me, it may not be really helpful. But if the world is not going to end, then that's a massive opportunity which you have to buy these assets at the bottom where everyone else is moving out and the institutions are coming in to buy that. And you as a retailer, understanding this fact gives you a massive advantage in the market. So if you are looking for that kind of thought process, you can look at this, because it was like, 2 hours back I posted this, and maybe an hour back I posted this. So that's like, you kind of get the idea. We were literally looking for that and we got that. So if you're a trader, that's kind of helpful. If you're a long-term guy understanding the technicals, learning, especially to actually go in the market, that's way helpful. So guys, if you receive value, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.